It was a day that did not stand out from any other day. The day did not feel different from the days before it or after it. Morning arrived in the usual way, without announcing itself or asking for attention. The light outside looked ordinary and behaved the way light normally behaves. Nothing about the sky suggested that anything important was about to happen. Inside a quiet room, a person was awake without any strong reason for being awake. The person did not feel rushed and did not feel delayed by anything. They remained still for a moment because there was no need to move quickly. The room stayed the same while the person stayed where they were. The air in the room felt neutral and unchanged from a few moments earlier. Nothing needed to be adjusted or fixed or thought about right away. Time continued to pass in the background without doing anything noticeable. The person eventually shifted slightly, because that is something people do. The movement did not improve or worsen anything in particular. After the movement, the person remained still again. The room continued being a room without reacting in any way. The sounds in the distance remained distant and unimportant. Nothing required a decision, and nothing asked to be remembered. The day continued being a day without developing a direction. This was not the beginning of anything meaningful. It was simply another moment that followed the last moment. The minutes moved forward in a way that did not call attention to itself. Nothing about the passage of time felt fast or slow enough to notice. The person remained aware only enough to know they were still present. Their thoughts did not settle on anything specific or interesting. Any thought that appeared did not stay very long. It drifted away without needing to be followed. The room continued to hold its shape and purpose without interruption. Objects in the room stayed where they had been placed before. No object suggested that it wanted to be used. No object suggested that it was important. The light in the room remained steady and unchanged. It did not brighten or dim in a noticeable way. Shadows stayed soft and ordinary. They did not move enough to matter. The person remained seated or lying where they were. Their position was comfortable enough to continue. There was no reason to improve it. Breathing continued in a consistent and forgettable pattern. It happened without effort or concern. It did not require instruction or adjustment. Time continued passing without producing events. Moments followed one another evenly. Each moment resembled the last moment closely. Nothing separated one moment from the next in a meaningful way. The person noticed that nothing needed to be done. This realization did not feel significant. It was simply accurate. The day outside continued without entering the room. Sounds from far away stayed far away. They did not approach or retreat. They existed only enough to confirm that the world was still there. The person did not respond to these sounds. There was no reason to. The room did not change its temperature in any noticeable way. It remained neutral and stable. The air felt the same as it had moments before. Time continued moving while appearing to stay still. The person remained aware of being awake. This awareness did not require action. It simply existed alongside everything else. The space around the person remained familiar. Familiarity did not create interest. It simply reduced the need for attention. Nothing about the situation suggested urgency. Nothing suggested importance. Nothing suggested consequence. The day continued being unremarkable. This was acceptable. The person continued resting without committing to rest. Their body remained where it was. Their mind did not wander far. If it wandered, it did so quietly. Thoughts appeared briefly and then left. None of them asked to be remembered. The light remained steady and predictable. Predictable light does not ask for interpretation. It simply fills space evenly. The person remained still again. This stillness did not feel deliberate. It was simply what happened next. Time continued moving without explanation. The room continued existing without effort. Nothing began. Nothing ended. The moment continued. Another moment followed. Then another. Each one similar. Each one unimportant. The day continued without forming a story. This lack of story did not feel incomplete. It felt normal. The person did not look for meaning. There was no need to. Meaning was not required here. The room stayed quiet. Quiet does not demand attention. Quiet allows time to pass unnoticed. The person remained where they were. The position continued to be fine. No adjustment was needed. Breathing continued naturally. It did not change pace. It did not change depth. It continued because it always does. The person did not focus on it. There was no benefit in doing so. Time continued passing in the background. Nothing interrupted it. Nothing marked it. The room continued to contain the person. The person continued to occupy the room. Neither reacted to the other. The day outside continued happening elsewhere. It did not need to be observed. It would continue without observation. The person allowed their attention to soften. This softness did not feel intentional. It simply happened. Thoughts became less distinct. They blended into one another gently. No single thought stayed long enough to matter. The moment remained uneventful. The next moment arrived quietly. It resembled the last. The room remained unchanged. The person remained present. Nothing developed. Nothing resolved. Time continued doing what time does. This continued without interruption. The next stretch of time passed without anything new occurring. Nothing announced the passing of these minutes as they went by. The person remained in the same general position as before. Their body did not signal any strong preference to move. Staying still required no effort. Moving also did not feel necessary. The room remained consistent in every observable way. The walls stayed where they were. The ceiling continued to be above everything else. The floor continued supporting what rested on it. None of this required thought. The person's attention remained loose and unfocused. It did not settle on any single detail for long. Details existed without being examined. They were present without being interesting. The light remained ordinary and unchanged. It continued filling the room evenly. No shadows demanded notice. No brightness suggested importance. Time continued to move in small and equal portions. Each portion felt similar to the last. There was no clear boundary between them. The person did not track how long they had been there. Tracking time did not seem useful. The day did not require awareness to continue. Breathing continued steadily and without variation. It happened quietly in the background. It did not interrupt anything. It did not create anything. The room remained quiet enough to forget it was quiet. Silence blended into the space naturally. The person remained comfortable enough to stay where they were. Comfort did not become excitement. It remained neutral. The body did not ask for attention. The mind did not ask questions. Thoughts appeared slowly and faded quickly. They did not form patterns. They did not lead anywhere. The person did not follow them. There was no need to. Time continued passing evenly. Nothing sped it up. Nothing slowed it down. The moment continued being ordinary. Another moment followed it closely. Then another moment followed that one. Each moment resembled the last one closely enough. The room continued existing without reacting. The person continued existing without reacting. Nothing responded to anything else. The light remained predictable. Predictability did not create interest. It reduced the need for awareness. The person's awareness softened slightly more. This happened without effort. It did not feel like a decision. It felt like a continuation. The room remained unchanged. Objects remained unused. Nothing suggested a task. Nothing suggested a goal. The day continued unfolding elsewhere. It did not require participation. The person remained where they were. Staying felt easier than doing. Doing did not feel necessary. Time continued passing quietly. It did not make announcements. It did not leave markers. The person did not notice how long it had been. They did not need to know. The room stayed neutral. The temperature stayed steady. Nothing shifted enough to matter. The person's posture remained acceptable. There was no discomfort worth responding to. The body remained calm. The mind remained unfocused. Thoughts became simpler. Some did not fully form. They dissolved before becoming clear. This did not cause concern. The moment continued. Then another moment continued. Nothing separated them. The day remained uneventful. This was normal. The room remained quiet. Quiet continued doing its job. The person remained present without effort. Awareness became lighter. Time continued without interruption. Nothing began. Nothing ended. Everything stayed the same. The moment passed. Another moment followed. Then another moment followed that one. This continued. The stretch of time that followed did not differ from the stretch before it. Nothing shifted enough to be noticed right away. The person remained where they had been for some time now. Their body felt settled into the position it was holding. There was no signal to change that position. Remaining still continued to feel acceptable. The room maintained its familiar arrangement. Nothing in the room suggested interaction. Nothing invited attention. The light remained steady and unchanged. It did not flicker or fade. It simply continued. The person did not look for anything to focus on. Focus did not seem useful here. Letting attention remain loose felt easier. Thoughts appeared briefly and then moved on. Some thoughts did not fully form. They passed without leaving a trace. The room continued to feel quiet. Quiet did not feel empty. It simply felt neutral. The person remained aware of being present. This awareness did not feel sharp. It felt soft and distant. Time continued moving forward quietly. It did not leave markers behind. Moments blended into one another. There was no clear separation between them. The person did not track what came before. They did not anticipate what might come next. Staying in the current moment felt sufficient. The air in the room remained the same. It did not feel warmer or cooler. It did not call attention to itself. The person remained comfortable enough. Comfort did not increase. It simply stayed. Breathing continued steadily in the background. It required no instruction. It continued on its own. The room did not react. The light did not change. Nothing responded to anything else. Time continued passing evenly. It did not hurry. It did not pause. The person's awareness softened again slightly. This did not feel deliberate. It felt like a continuation of before. Thoughts became quieter. Some were incomplete. Others faded before being noticed. The room remained unchanged. Objects stayed unused. They remained where they had been. Nothing suggested that something should happen. Nothing suggested that something would happen. The day continued elsewhere without involvement. It did not require attention to continue. The person remained still. Staying still required less effort than moving. Moving did not feel necessary. Time continued passing without interruption. Nothing marked its passing. The room stayed neutral. The person stayed present. Awareness became lighter again. The moment continued without comment. Another moment followed. Then another moment followed that one. Each one similar. Each one unimportant. Nothing developed. Nothing resolved. The day remained ordinary. The room remained quiet. The person remained where they were. Time continued doing what time does. This continued without change. The time that came next behaved the same way as the time before it. Nothing arrived to interrupt it. Nothing arrived to improve it. The person remained in place without reconsidering that choice. Their body felt stable enough to remain still. There was no pressure to adjust or respond. The room continued holding its shape. Its boundaries remained familiar and unchanged. Nothing within the room moved noticeably. The light stayed consistent. It continued doing what light normally does. There was nothing about it to evaluate. The person did not examine the room. Examination did not feel necessary. Awareness remained spread out and unfocused. Thoughts appeared less often now. When they did appear, they felt incomplete. They did not connect to anything else. They passed without leaving behind anything useful. Time continued moving forward quietly. It did not announce itself. It did not wait. Moments followed moments at an even pace. None of them stood apart from the others. The room remained quiet enough to forget. Quiet became the background. The person continued breathing without noticing it. Breathing remained steady. It did not change. The body felt present without asking for attention. There were no strong sensations. There were no weak sensations either. Everything remained neutral. The person did not feel the need to check anything. There was nothing to check. The day outside continued without participation. It did not require observation. The room stayed separate from it. The person stayed where they were. Stillness continued to be the easiest option. Time continued passing in small, unmarked pieces. Each piece blended into the next. There was no clear beginning or end to any of them. The light remained predictable. Predictability did not invite focus. It reduced it. Awareness softened again. This happened gradually. It did not feel like a change. It felt like more of the same. Thoughts became quieter. Some did not finish forming. They dissolved quickly. The room remained unchanged. Objects remained unused. Nothing suggested action. Nothing suggested meaning. The moment continued. Then another moment followed quietly. Then another followed that one. Each one nearly identical. Each one forgettable. Nothing developed over time. Nothing needed to. The person remained present. Presence required no effort. The room remained quiet. Quiet remained ordinary. Time continued. This continued. The final stretch of time did not announce itself as final. It behaved the same way as every stretch before it. Nothing shifted to mark it as different. The person remained where they had been for a long while now. Their body stayed settled and unremarkable. There was no reason to move. There was no reason to stay. Remaining simply happened. The room continued existing without reaction. Its shape did not change. Its purpose did not matter. The light stayed steady and ordinary. It did not brighten or fade in a noticeable way. It remained present without asking for attention. Thoughts were faint now. Some barely appeared at all. Others faded before becoming clear. They passed without consequence. Time continued moving quietly. Moments blended together gently. There was no need to separate them. The air remained neutral. The room remained quiet. The person remained present. Awareness softened further. This did not feel important. It felt natural. Breathing continued without notice. The body did not ask for anything. The mind did not search for meaning. Nothing needed to happen next. Nothing needed to be remembered. The day continued being a day. The room continued being a room. The moment continued. And then it continued again. Nothing changed. There was no ending. There was simply no reason to continue noticing.